Hello everybody, this is the Sequence Lifecycle kubeadm office hours. Today is the 4th of March 2020. I'm going to share the agenda document in chat. Please add your names to the list of participants and your agenda topics. Okay, let me share my screen. The meeting participants. Prakash, I believe you are already participated in this meeting before. All right, let's move to the PSAs. Ross, you have a PSA?
Yeah, so I have a couple of organizational PSAs before we move to the actual technical ones. So KubeCon EU is postponed for sometime in July or August due to the coronavirus, and there is a link to the Linux Foundation page for this. So we don't know yet what's going to happen to the kubeadm deep dive talks, or whether we actually are going to attend at all, and this is probably, and whether this is going to happen. So we should probably stay tuned to the Linux Foundation and CNCF on that. And my next PSA is that next week US enters daylight saving time, and this is probably going to cause some changes to the local times of this meeting in particular, and probably the rest of the upstream meetings. So better check what's the starting hour.
All right, any comments? I had a comment about KubeCon. I canceled my hotel and flight registrations, but I didn't cancel my conference registration. And I suggest that everybody does the same. Once the dates are clear, I guess we can book flights and hotel again. If there is going to be a conference in August or July. For the flight specifically, it kind of depends because you might be able to transfer your flights forward in time, but given there is no conference date, you cannot transfer it to a specific date yet.
The problem for us is, so those who have a visa issue, they cannot just keep the registration, right? We have to re-register, I believe. So I have cancelled everything.
I do not have an answer. My understanding is that you can keep your registration, but if you canceled your registration, you have to register again.
Yeah, I think we'll register again because they have to announce it, right? I did not see Linux Foundation backing off, saying that they are going to postpone it, right? Did you hear that they are postponing?
Yeah, the link there contains actually the postponement. It is KubeCon Shanghai that is going to be actually cancelled. KubeCon EU is only being postponed. But that's at least the news for now. There is also every chance that it's going to get cancelled as well, depending on the coronavirus situation. So for now, I don't think that anybody actually has some answers. So we should probably just stay tuned to the Linux Foundation and CNCF pages and their Twitter accounts and see how this actually develops.
Okay. So the other one, the DST change, is it going to be based on the PST, that is Pacific Standard Time, as is, or is it going to be?
This meeting is, I think, scheduled on some of the US. Yeah, I think it's probably according to US Pacific time, and this basically pins it to the specific US time. So for the US, it's always 9 a.m. Pacific time. But for the rest of the world, which shifts differently according to the daylight savings time, it's going to be slightly different. So for example, for the EU, this meeting is going to start an hour earlier than usual for the next 3 weeks.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, let's continue with the PSAs. Just want to say that code freezes tomorrow, end of day PST. Maybe later we can have a look at some of the pending PRs that we have. Another PSA is that this is a major change that is being done by a working group, Kate's Infra, is that GCR-IO-Google containers is now going to be deprecated in favor of a different GCR bucket. So the recommendation is to use Kates.io GCR.io. Basically, this is a DNS redirect that is going to point to the new bucket once it's up. And more details you can find here. So me and Sada QE already updated all kubeadm related usages of Google containers. So we are clear. But just want to point out if potential users of kubeadm are pinning to this, they should adapt.
I have a question. When there's a minikube being installed, there's this error saying that sorry, I cannot download the kubelet version something because there is no route to host. Can it be related?
Sorry, I completely misunderstood your question. Can you clarify?
When you start minikube in specific version, there is this error printed that kubelet version 1.15.2 can be downloaded because there is no route to the host. Can the thing that you just mentioned be related to this because there is no kubelet in that location because it's a different bucket as you called it?
No, this change has not been applied yet. So the Google containers GCR bucket is still active.
Okay.
If you have any troubles, you can ask in the in the hashtag kubeadm channel on Kubernetes Slack. Usually, you might get a response pretty quickly about issues like that.
Cool. Try to download from Kubernetes GCR IO, Kubernetes DNS. Oh, okay, I see the issue. Try to download DNS queue and cannot.
No route to host sounds like a networking issue to me.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yep, like something can't be resolved or something. Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any more questions for this GCR change?
So this GCR change, putting k8s.gcr.io, is it going to be applicable for all the providers, similar providers?
It's a website change. It's a URL change. So basically, everyone who downloads from this particular URL might not be able to download anymore because new Kubernetes image releases are going to be added to a new GCR bucket. Basically, this URL for some images might become invalid at some point in time. The recommendation is to start using this.
So is the renaming universal all across, not just for Google Cloud, but also for example, MetalCube also? Like, are you going to say metal3.io?
I have no information if MetalCube are using the Google GCR buckets.
I see. It's only, effect is only on GCR. Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, it's not clear to me who is using the old bucket, but the recommendation is if you pin to the DNS name, you're going to be able to have a smooth transition to the new bucket. If you use the URL directly, you might face problems.
I see. Okay, got it.
Okay. I wanted to mention something else here is that we are facing a change in the Kubernetes CSR API. This is something that Fabrizio might be interested in. So basically, Kubernetes has a certificates API, which is currently v1 beta 1. And basically, they're changing the spec of the CSR objects to include a signer name. And what is happening here is that what is breaking kubeadm here is that the kube controller manager is no longer going to be able to sign arbitrary certificates. for those that don't know, for those that know, we have this command that can be used with a flag that is use API. And the use API flag is going to give you the option to update your certificates using the Kubernetes kube controller manager. But after this change that is being applied, basically the CSR API is going to work only for the kubelet serving and client certificates. And you know, the command is alpha, but we are still facing a breaking change. So I opened this issue, I discussed it with some folks.
Sorry, Luke, but what happens for an older cluster? So they are adding a mandatory field without cutting a release of the API.
Yes, however, the controller manager version is going to remain the same, hopefully, on the old cluster. So, yeah, I agree with you. They have this really bad policy that they are not bumping the version. But the point here is that the old cluster is supposedly going to have this old version of the kube controller manager, which is still going to support our usage of the use API fork.
No, my problem is that kubeadm is designed to support the current version, the current Kubernetes version, and the -1.
Yep.
That means that if we add in our alpha command the new field, we can work only with the current one, but not with the old one.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, I will rally on the issue, on the
yes, I'm going to bring this for a discussion as well. It's really, it was a complicated topic in general, and I needed quite some time to understand what's going on here to begin with. Yeah, this is your comment is pretty valid. We cannot use the new field, but let me try to think here. So the kubeadm CSR cannot have the field because the old kube controller manager is not going to recognize it. The old API server is not going to recognize it. But
I think that we can let me say add the field, so the new kubeadm will work with the new Kubernetes version, and say to the user, sorry, this is an alpha feature, it does not work with older Kubernetes. So kubeadm v1.18 does not work, the alpha command with the -- use API flag does not work with v1.17. You have to use kubeadm v1.17 if you want to reuse this feature.
so the point is that it's still going to continue working in 1.18. It's going to stop working in 1.19 when supposedly the certificates API is going to be v1. But to your previous comment, like old API servers are going to ignore the existence of a field that is unknown. So the old API server is going to ignore this field, and the CSRs. So if kubeadm is 1.19 and the control plane is 1.18, basically the feature is still going to work because the field is going to be ignored by the API server. There's no strict validation on the control plane side currently. Do you think this is correct?
Has anyone even used that to renew the certificates in their clusters? I will ask like this straightforward.
We have no way to know. I asked some folks, but I didn't got the reply. So basically, whoever is using the controller manager currently to, because you pass to the controller manager certificate authority, and you can use that to renew any certificate without limitations.
Yeah, if you have CA, then exactly, yeah.
But now this change is going to prevent that, and kubeadm supports this feature. I have a plan already what I'm supposed to do. The idea is simply to file a PR saying that in the future release we are not going to basically support the Kube Controller Manager as the only signer for certificates that are basically generated using CSR. Users may have to use external signers for those certificates.
I think they do already. I mean, this is the way. I just work with OpenSSL. That's it.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
I mean, I think they do. I mean, does anyone use that feature? I don't know. I know that on our clusters, the cluster I work with, we renew certificates with OpenSSL tooling.
Sure. You can definitely renew certificates from disk. The point is whoever is using this.
That's why I'm curious if that
We do not know.
That would be very useful. That would be very useful.
Yeah, yes, but we do not know who is using this feature.
Yeah, exactly my point.
So it's under alpha. We can potentially break it. We can completely remove it. I wanted to get feedback from this group. Whether do you want to go on the path to completely remove the feature, or go with my plan, which was to. I don't like this very much, but my plan is to basically start fragmenting the support for who is signing the CSRs. Maybe we should just remove this feature at this point, because it's a major degradation of the UX.
I mean, having such a feature would be great, to be honest, because there's some overhead every time, every period of time when certificates needs to be renewed, right? So yeah, I think we could try this. I mean, if that's a thing, it's interesting even.
I don't know what are the statistics in terms of who is using external signers like Cert Manager. That's an external signer. My guess is going to be that not that many kubeadm users are using this feature.
Yeah.
What do others think?
I agree the users will be pretty limited. So if we change and we add a release note, I'm fine with it. It is an alpha command. I never get a user report about it. So I think the usage is really low.
Okay, more folks?
Yeah, I think that if it's an alpha command, we can easily just nuke it, or at least disable it, and probably get more time to think over the issue, as basically code freezes tomorrow. We don't have enough time for this cycle to enact a better solution.
What I think we should do, we should pretty much file the PR today to print a warning when this command is used with the flag. And we can say that when the certificates v1 API is released, we're just going to remove this command.
I wonder if something like CertBot could be integrated into the picture here, because I really like this Let's Encrypt stuff. I usually write my Ansible jobs with Acme version 1 or version 2, based on the servers I work with. They just run check for the certs. The cert is, I know, 10 days to be expired and renewed. So I wonder if such a thing could be integrated in the whole thing, but I don't see the whole picture, so I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah, we're trying to keep a command that is hermetic to the installation that kubeadm has by default. And this includes the kube controller manager, which can be leveraged for signing certificates. Any external tooling is out of scope of the command, but you can still use the external signer here. But I don't like the fragmentation between some certificates being signed by the kube controller manager and some being signed by this external signer.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, makes sense. Because usually you have your cluster components internally communicating and not necessarily exposing them to the world.
Exactly. All right, so do you think that we should squeeze this warning PR until tomorrow? Rossi?
Yeah, I'm +1 on that.
All right. I'm going to set the PR later today and ping folks for a quick review. Thank you. Right, I just want to give another update about the work on moving kubeadm out of Kubernetes. I'm experimenting in this repository. Basically, the idea here is to use GitHub Actions, and then based on the actions, I implemented different workflows. Like some of them are doing synchronization between tags and branches from KK. I'm not going to give a full demo here today, but I just wanted to say that I'm having pretty good progress overall. So the synchronization of branches and tags works fine. I'm also experimenting with create release. So this is not exactly something that I wanted to do in terms of like releasing kubeadm from this repository, but I'm also mostly playing with the concept of having release nodes attached to a certain tag. So if you go to, for instance, the list of tags, if these are proper GitHub releases, you're going to see the release nodes folded in here. This is just an experiment at this point. But we also have the option to even release binaries from here because the process is fairly simple. What else I've been working on? So yeah, at some point I have to request a review from folks on this. The logic itself is not super complicated at this point. I'm just playing with some bash, which is not that much actually.
I just want to say how happy I am to see something like this. I mean, building something just from Kubernetes repository requires one to have a secret knowledge of doing so, or how, which script to run or something. So if there is one component, core component, which is somewhere outside and it can be built like this, like that, that's great.
Yeah, there is a long-term plan for a lot more tools to move out of Kubernetes like kubectl, maybe someday the kubelet. But the roadmap for those is not very clear. We are mostly focusing on kubeadm.
Yeah, I see. I know.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give this as a heads up. At some point, I'm going to give a demo showing what some of this stuff is actually doing. And also get feedback if you want to maintain this. I have a bit of a problem with directly moving this code to SIG release. And I already discussed this with Team Pepper because, so currently they have similar tools. For instance, if I go in my CMD here, I have a repo fast forward. They have a similar tool, but this tool is quite different because it's automated. It makes assumptions based on tags, and then fast forwards if it sees a green light. On the other hand, the repository fast forward in the Kubernetes release tooling is completely manual. And Tim Pepper said that he thinks that it's fine to keep this as a separate tool because the scope in their repository is slightly different. And we have some ownership questions here. Do we want to own this code? Maybe it can live in the kubeadm repo for a while. At some point, we can move it to the Kubernetes release repo. Like politics, who is going to own the code? For now, it seems that my recommendation is to merge this into the kubeadm repo and think about the future after that.
So I think that it's probably safe to merge in the kubeadm repo, but on the other hand, I also think that we should at least send the PU CPR to the K release repo so that we got SIG release folks thinking over it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to give a demo in front of SIG release at some point of these apps, and we can think about like get their feedback. Like where should we merge this after kubeadm moves out? Do they want this code as the generic code for any component that moves into a separate repo? I'm not sure. So we have to discuss it with them.
Lubomir, I have a question. Is this going to be owned after that by SIG release? Meaning, are they going to still release kubeadm, or are we owning the process and actually doing the releases?
So we had multiple discussions in terms of how to properly release kubeadm after it moves out. And this is obviously related to the topic of building kubeadm first. And it's not clear yet how we're going to build kubeadm. But yes, to the release process question, SIG release still want to own the release of kubeadm, and they want to release it as part of the artifacts for each release. But these are still discussions that we are having right now. The tooling itself in here, I still don't have an answer if they want to own it, because it's like this niche tooling for projects that want to follow the Kubernetes release, release tagging and branching, but be part of the Kubernetes release as artifacts. kubekernel don't want to do that. They just want to be part of the release, but they're going to follow a separate version. So, these tools do not matter to them. Maybe they have interest in this particular one, which is leveraging the release nodes functionality. So I really don't have good answers here, but hopefully I'm explaining the situation.
Thanks.
So I think that we should probably also involve into this conversation SIG CLI and the kubectl folks in particular, simply because I think that they're probably the next ones that would have to come up with a similar solution. So selling the solution to them is probably going to be the key to selling it to SIG release too.
Yeah, I definitely can contact someone from SIG CLI to have a look at this. Unfortunately, they have, like everyone pretty much in this project, have limited bandwidth. And to be honest, it feels to me like this is the responsibility of SIG release to orchestrate the discussions in meetings instead of the kubeadm maintainers. But sure, I can definitely send an email to the SIG CLI mailing list to say, hey, we have a bunch of tools, you might have interest in some of them. This stage is still not ready. When the tools are in a proper shape, I'm going to definitely let them know. All right, any more comments on this tooling discussion?
Can I ask you, what's the motivation behind moving the kubeadm away from Kubernetes releases?
So we're not going to move kubeadm from Kubernetes releases. kubeadm is going to continue following the release cycle of Kubernetes and the versioning.
Mm-hmm. So it's like modularization effort?
Yes, basically splitting stuff into separate repositories, but still having the same versions for them.
Okay, micro.
But kubekernel, on the other hand, like I'm trying to explain here, kubekernel is not going to follow the Kubernetes version.
Yeah, it doesn't have to, right? I mean,
so at some point you may have to download a version of kubekernel that is 1.03 instead of 1.19.
Yeah.
This is a separate concern, but I don't think we should have this discussion here.
Sure.
This is something that should be discussed with 6CLI. Basically, why are they doing this, and is this really a good idea in terms of how many users they're going to break?
Yep.
All right, let's continue to the next topic. We don't have one, so if you want to add your agenda here, please let me know. All right, issue triage. I think we should continue from last time on the PRs. We have a couple of new ones, and then we can move to issues. We haven't done any issue triage in a long time. All right, so where did we reach last time? Okay. I think we, Rossi, we reached your PR with the table.
Yeah, I think that we actually covered this one.
All right, so by the way, this is the PR for the Windows flags. I think it's close to release, but I'm pretty much LGTM on this one at this point. So unless you have objections, I think we should merge it. It's not a breaking. I don't see potential for breaking anything with this. So I'm going to add LGTM hold. Feel free to remove the hold. And the verified job has not passed yet, but I think it's fine. The update, so Gapsachi updated basically our last, based on our last two discussions that we had. All right, next one. So this is a nice to have, but it's it might miss code freeze because the contributor disappeared. So every time we parse the flags for the API server in terms of authorization mode, we print a warning no matter what, if basically the flag contains the defaults. We always print this warning. And this is the PR is changing that with a comparison function. First check if things are the same or not. But I requested, I don't remember what I requested. Yeah, I requested a squash on the commits. I don't want to merge these three commits. So hopefully the user can come back to this after code freeze. If not, I'm going to send the PR myself. Parse token, this is moving stuff around Coaster Bootstrap, the repository. I think the PR is mostly approved at this point, minus the actual approve label. It's moving a certain function between folders of the cluster bootstrap repository. This is an interesting one for people to see. Basically, this is another change in client Go, where previously you had to pass delete options as a pointer, but now you have to pass it by value.
Oh my God, I have encountered such an error so many times, especially when decoding and info marshalling objects.
You have usage of this?
No. I was just no, never mind. Just go on.
Yeah, client Go is seeing a number of breaking changes basically in the next release. So if you are subscribed to the Kubernetes Dev mailing list, you should see some of these notifications.
Right. I actually do.
And also you can also watch the client Go repository for this. It has a separate repository. kubeadm in this case benefits that we are seeing the changes being applied for us by other people because we still live in the Kubernetes repository. Next one, ensure DNS is running when migration fails.
Migration of what?
Rajat, Sadiq, do you have updates on this?
Yeah, there was an issue which was created by a user who had a custom CodeDNS image, and at that point the migration of the core file fails. It basically is pointing to a wrong config map and throwing an error. So this actually fixes that.
Right.
So we should not be editing the key and the path of the volume, just the key should be fine.
I see what you're doing.
When we do that, then it actually fixes it.
So you're also hard coding the core file.
Looks like it.
Yeah, that I cannot avoid doing because it needs both the key and the path to be patched at the same time.
I see.
So if the migration fails and there is a default value hard coded used, then isn't that going to be a problem?
So there's another change which I did. So if the migration check happens first. So if the migration fails, it just exits. Before that, it used to actually change the deployment and then check if the migration is would be able to happen or fail. So right now the function which actually patches the deployment is after the migration check.
So it's okay. I see it. So it's rollbacking itself to a working state.
All right. I think we should get this into the next release. So I'm going to apply LGTM proof here. Rossi, any objections to that?
I haven't actually taken a look at this one, so I'll probably review it on the fly.
Okay, feel free to hold to apply a hold if you think it's not appropriate. Actually, I'm going to add hold for you.
Okay.
And if this goes through, I would like that this would be cherry picked to previous versions. It might affect users in the previous versions as well.
All right. So now the question is how critical a bug we think it is.
It's a corner case for users who have their have their own image, for example. So it's not that critical. But if we want to consider this, then I would cherry pick it. Otherwise, we can just leave it.
Can they avoid this on the command line somehow?
I'm not sure.
So if we don't have an easy workaround, for instance, the previous issue, we could just keep the pre-flight check. Now this is slightly more complex. Maybe we should, that's an argument for a cherry pick, maybe.
Yes. So I would, if it were up to me, I would want the cherry pick to happen. But if it doesn't happen, that's fine as well.
Okay. Rossi, what do you think?
Let me go through it and I'll see. But I don't think that it's probably worth cherry picking at this point. If it's a corner case and with the specific coordinates image, then probably we shouldn't be doing cherry picking simply because it's not critical urgent.
Yeah, it's really hard to justify issues that are not like important soon or critical urgent. I had cases where I had an argument about important soon being cherry picked. For instance, we had a bug in our alpha feature, which was completely preventing the alpha feature from working. So I made an argument with the release team, hey, this is not critical because it's alpha, but without this patch, we cannot even use the feature. But for important long term, it's really hard to make an argument. So maybe what we have to do instead of sending the cherry picks is to file a PR for the website in the troubleshooting section. So like say, hey, in 1.17 we have this issue. I know that this is slightly more complicated than the cherry pick, but
It always is.
yeah, this is, and potentially we can have an explanation maybe. So are there Rajan, are there any workarounds in general? Like can the users patch the config map somehow?
The only workaround in this case would be to edit the deployment right now to point it to the correct code file, and it would work.
And you actually are doing the same, right? You're patching the deployment here.
Right.
So that if that works, I would say that works, right? I mean, maybe someone should test it out. I don't know.
I did try to see if that workaround would work. It works.
Okay.
But yeah, so if that would be a workaround, then we can suggest that.
Yeah, maybe we should add it to the troubleshooting section. You know, as a separate entry here. If you want, you can set the PR for that. For the
All
website.
right. Yeah.
It's like a unfortunate bug, really. But you know, the policy of Kubernetes backports is really preventing us from advocating for some of these backports.
Yeah, I understand.
Uh-huh.
All right, thanks.
Not cherry picking.
The policy is only critical, urgent, panics, and security bugs.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Okay, we're done with the PRs. How much time do we have? 15 minutes.
Tak, zamknę. Cześć. Dojdzie.
I wanted to look at. So this one apparently Marek wasn't able to complete the work, and he hasn't been participating in the last few meetings. So we are going to skip kubeadm upgrade apply for this cycle. Maybe next cycle we can think potentially asking if Marek is going to be able to do it or not. Maybe asking for the community at this point for somebody to take over this work, because it's like becoming more important for us the longer we delay. Anything else? There have been discussions around CA bundles. It's not clear. It's like working on core Kubernetes authorization topics. I don't see anything critical like for 118. Okay. So we are done with, let me mark this. I like API machinery are doing pretty smart triage. Like they mark where they have reached in terms of when they are triaging issues and PRs. So we haven't done this in a long time. We haven't looked at our issues. So I wanted to look at least at the 118 milestone to see what priorities we have here. So given code phrases tomorrow, I don't think we can do anything here except for shifting all tickets to the next milestone, pretty much, except for maybe docs, because the docs deadline is still to come. All right, let's start from the bottom. Sorry, from the top, because the top is the oldest one. I'm going to shift this to the next milestone. This is API change, shifting to next milestone. Stop calling bin sleep. This is Yasin wanted to work on that, but I don't think he has time for this anymore due to internal priorities. So I'm going to unassign him with an add help wanted. Move it to the next cycle. After that, learner mode, we definitely cannot do anything about this for now. kubeadm flags environment file contains deprecated kubeadm flags. It's a long-standing issue. But actually, I'm liking how our picture in terms of kubeadm flags is much clearer nowadays. Maybe if somebody takes this next cycle, we can pretty much finish the work here and stop using some of these flags that apply both to the config and yeah, both on the command line and config at the same time. Allow usage of. So this is yeah. I'm going to move this to the next cycle as well. This needs discussion. Overlap between kubeconfig phase and alpha kubeconfig. This needs discussion. Provide workarounds for the commits subset. This is a complicated topic to resolve in one day. Moving the config to next cycle. In terms of Windows support, we are actually doing some pretty good work. Ben Moss and Gab Sachi are doing this in the separate repository for kubeadm. So this is the flag the PR we discussed earlier. It's really nice to have. We don't need it really. So it's not super critical for us. Because Ben Moss implemented a workaround, they pretty much stomped the default kubeadm environment flag, environment file. This is the repository for anybody who wants to take a look. The things are looking pretty good for getting the new support for Windows/kubeadm to beta in this cycle. I don't see any major blockers at this point. Sorry, there is one potential blocker, and that's end-to-end tests. It's quite complicated to test this because of you have to have a running infrastructure somewhere that supports both Linux and Windows. We are still discussing with Costa API folks how to get started with their provider. But yeah, there are chances that it's going to be beta in 118. Network config end-to-end test. This is by Arvind there. We're basically going to potentially not have any more actions for this cycle. Dual stack is from him as well. Move control plane tense. Nothing to do here. This is a complicated topic to address as well. For this one, I mean, this is not a topic to discuss so late in the cycle, but I think we could just use the rootfs, and I'm going to experiment it with that because it might just work if you pass the rootfs flags to kubeadm. Kinder base image.
What is Kinder?
Kinder is a tool that you can find in the kubeadm repo. Do you know of the project called Kind? So there is a project in Kubernetes that is called Kind. It's a Docker and Docker setup, basically. You can deploy Kubernetes using Docker and Docker, and you can find it in Kubernetes 6 Kind.
What? Okay.
It's a fairly popular project already. It has been existing for a couple of years at least. And you can deploy local multi-node clusters with it.
Okay. So it's like cups, but it's Kinder.
No, it's not like COPS.
Oh, it's not like cups. Okay.
So Kind is a project, and in kubeadm we have a separate project called Kinder. So Kinder is an extension to Kind, and we are using it for end-to-end tests.
Okay.
A question for a survey I'm going to ask in the wider SQL lifecycle meeting is whether we want to even have the survey, giving like a release outside of sync of the KubeCon event. Maybe we just want to get the survey as soon as possible instead of waiting to for August, you know, potentially delaying the survey a lot. So this is a topic for a separate meeting. Just wanted to mention this here because this is where we have the tracking issue. This is an API change. This is still a flaky. We have a flake problem in Kinder. Like most of the things here are important long-term policies, API changes. So this is a stale issue.
Oh, Hypercube is deprecated?
Hypercube is officially deprecated in Kubernetes.
Oh.
It's moving to a separate repository.
I mean, I know I had to change the repository from something to some, I think Google something, I don't remember. From Key.io to Google, I think.
I'm going to share this in the chat. You can check this.
During update of Kubernetes.
Yeah, look for, basically you have to read everything. There is a link here because it has more information.
More context,
Just wanted I wanted to freeze this because it's not clear when it's going to happen for us. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, kubeadm is moving away from Hypercube. This is a stale. I'm going to leave this PR to potentially rot. I don't have the time to figure out what is best to do there. It's a small change in Kinder. Have quite a number of issues remaining. This is a complicated topic. Upgrade apply phases. This one, I wanted Fabrizio and Luca to comment on this, but I'm pretty much going to post my comments that I posted to them, and I'm just going to close this issue at this point. Okay. There is the core DNS pod deployment. So this complicated topic to discuss. Driver client Kubernetes only supports the core. Yeah, this is complicated as well. Rossi, do you want to remove the stale, or should I do it? Like, do you want the state here frozen or something?
Yeah, probably just set it to lifecycle active because they're like pending PRs for this.
All right. Okay, machine readable outputs. This is, we're making pretty good progress here. Bartosz is doing one command at a time. I'm just going to add lifecycle active instead of frozen here. Move kubeadm, this is active. So this is kubeadm join control plane fails on clusters created by. I'm not even sure what this is. I'm going to keep a tab on this, potentially cause this. Yeah, this is not for this cycle, but I'm going to keep some of the docs issues open. All right, let me as well reduce the priority of this ticket. Because it's not for this cycle anymore. Housekeeping tax, I'm working on those. This is nice to have. OpenRC, this we cannot do anything about it today. Contain deployment scenarios, Edge, this is a complicated topic in this discussion, certify. Lee said that he's working on that, so I'm going to add it as active. Not sure if he's continuing to work on this. Maybe we can have it for 1:18. 1 minute remaining. This is like a pretty fast-ish triage. All right, deprecate and delete the kube version command line option.
Yeah, I think that all of that needed to be done in this cycle is already done, which is basically mark the option as deprecated. So this is safely, we can move it to the next bucket or something like this.
Yeah, okay. A Kubernetes should use flag for CRI sockets. This is, do you have context on that?
Yeah, I think that the best option we can do at this point is probably just change the error message a little bit, but this actually required some sort of a pretty nasty reworking.
I see.
So yeah, so for the now being, and that this actually exists as a bug ever since it was actually introduced as an option to kubeadm in it, and this was several cycles ago. And this is the first time they actually reported. I don't think it's that high of a priority.
All right, I see. So it's active. I'm also going to apply an active label to this one, and we can end the meeting because it's time for the cluster API meeting. All right, so thanks folks. See you again next week. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.